Can you comment briefly, Prof, on the shrinking public space, arrest and persecution of journalists, opposition figures? Because as we sit down here, Prof, Malam Nasir El-Rufai is currently in detention. Omoyele Sowore is being bounced in and out of prison and courthouses. The same thing with Malam Nasir El-Rufai. From one courthouse, he's granted stringent bail conditions. Before he could meet that, he's been hauled in by maybe another agency of anti-security agency or whatever. Can you speak to this, sir?
Well, for those of us in the human rights community, we're extremely concerned about this part of what I'm calling the executive recklessness, where you show clear disregard to procedures and to core principles. In this country, you have a judge who will refuse you bail except if you bring a level 17 government official to provide your bail. By definition, a government official has to remain compliant to his government. And we are talking of somebody who is in opposition to that government. So a judge that will issue such bail conditions is consciously making conditions impossible for you to implement. And they even add things like that level 17 officer must have a house worth billions of naira that's located in Metama or Asokoro in Abuja. A permanent secretary who has worked for 30 years cannot have the resources, if he is an honest public servant, to own a house that's worth billions in Metama or in Asokoro. And if one does have that house, because it's possible, he could have inherited it or anything, then why would he take the risk of such high-value property on a case like that? So it's deliberate mischief, it's judicial mischief that we are suffering from in this country, where a corrupt judiciary that needs protection from the executive decides to please the executive by placing such conditions so that they will curry favor from the executive. It's extremely sad situation, and I've spoken to a number of senior lawyers to understand their perspective. And all of them are saying that what's on trial currently are not these individuals, but the judiciary itself. That the judiciary is betraying its mission, is acting contrary to set principles of the rule of law, and that therefore such action is a real danger for the survival of Nigerian democracy.
Sir, many have said that we are facing creeping totalitarianism, that the Nigerian state is creeping, walking open-eyed, not even closed, not blindfolded, walking open-eyed into civilian dictatorship. What's your response, sir?
The Nigerian people over the last 50 years have shown a determination and a skill set to contest dictatorship. What we have is rising authoritarianism. Authoritarianism means executive power is being regularly abused, and this abuse is against the rights and the interests of the Nigerian people. I think it's, even at the height of military dictatorship under Abacha, for example, Nigerians prevented that system degenerating into a dictatorship. And Abacha held his 1 million march to show that his power is absolute. And ordinary Nigerians organized a 2 million man march to counter what dictator Abacha was trying to do at that time. I think we still have that attitude in this country. Nigerians are not cowed. They are not afraid of the rising authoritarianism. They are mobilizing. They are resisting. And if some of the individuals currently in jail and under harassment, like Nasiru El-Rufai and Shore, if you look at what's happening for them, it's because they are showing leadership in resisting authoritarianism. And the attitude of the government of the day is to lock them up, to shut them up, to stop them being able to do what they want. So what this shows is that, yes, the Tinubu administration is trying to establish a full dictatorship in this country, but the Nigerian people are resisting that dictatorship, are fighting it, and are really determined to show that they are not going to allow this system develop into a full dictatorship, and they will continue to fight for rights, for to run their existence as citizens of this country, and that the rights of citizens will continue to be protected because citizens will not agree to give up their rights.
Prof, I need you to comment on this before it skips my mind. Reuters, the global news medium, broke the story of the 8.8 trillion naira expenditure by the Tinubu government, that it was not properly budgeted for. It was not in any of the budgets, either 2024, 2025, or 2026. 8.8 trillion naira, representing 2.8% of our entire GDP. Of course, it was the IMF that raised it before Reuters broke the news, and then, of course, it's been everywhere. What's your response to this?
Well, I wasn't surprised at all. Don't forget, when Tinubu came into power in May 2023, the first thing he did was to issue the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. And he brought a contractor from France who had not submitted a bid, who had not gone through a procurement system, and offered him that contract in total disrespect to due process rules. And we do have a procurement act that says government cannot give such contracts without going through due process procedures. A contract was issued to this person. Now, the entire experts in this country said that the amount bears no relationship to the quantum of work that is expected from that, and that it was simply wasting public resources by giving a contract that had not been duly assessed by government to a personal friend of the president. So that's why I wasn't surprised at all to find out with this report that this situation is a much more generalized pattern in this administration, where due process is completely disregarded. I still remember the good old days when my good friend Obi Ezekwesili was head of the due process office, and was always insisting on the point that if you want to fix corruption in Nigeria, and if you want to ensure the delivery of public service, you must insist that every procurement goes through the due process mechanism. That attitude has disappeared from this government. They have shown total disregard for due process mechanism and are simply using public resources not to produce public goods, but for the personal wealth and aggrandizement of individuals. And that is a tragedy for the future development of Nigeria.
Prof, I know you spoke very strongly against the degeneration of our judicial system. But I want to be specific in this next question about the Justice Peter Lifu High Court decision to deregister 5 political parties, ADC, Accord, APM, in flagrant disobedience of an express directives of the Court of Appeal to stay action on that matter. Can you speak to this in 1 minute, Prof?
Well, I think
Sorry, sir. Maybe you also take the case of the Lokoja High Court, the Issa Dashed, who also said they should no longer register NDC after I had previously said they should register them.
Well, I think the verdict on this issue is very clear. There's a crisis over the 2027 election because the Tinubu administration is determined to prevent opposition parties that are credible from having candidates that will contest against President Tinubu. And I think that reality is a very revealing one, that President Tinubu is very conscious of the fact that he has produced so much misery for Nigerians that Nigerians cannot vote for him in 2027. With the knowledge that he will lose the 2027 election, is now recklessly using the abuse of presidential powers to stop opposition parties from contesting against him so that he will be the only candidate and would therefore go through. That is the clear ambition of the Tinubu administration. And at every twist and turn, they use their agents in the judiciary to seek to block it. I'm glad that not everybody in the judiciary is following that script. And we still have people of honesty and character in the judiciary that are able to resist this attempt to block the opposition. If President Tinubu succeeds in blocking opposition from contesting against him, that means there's zero democracy in Nigeria. And that's the end of the system. And citizens at that point are going to come to the conclusion that imposes itself, that since there is no democracy, we can't pretend there is democracy. So it's, I think, a critical issue that will determine the political future of Nigeria. I think the judiciary needs to reflect a bit about some of its agents that are adopting this executive recklessness I've spoken about earlier in terms of their judicial decisions. They are not just threatening the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. They are, in essence, threatening democracy, the existence of democracy in Nigeria. And my sense is that if there is one thing Nigerians are committed to, it is two issues. It's federalism, it's democracy. The moment Nigerians come to the conclusion that we have lost democracy, it means also that we have lost federalism. Because once you have one-man dictatorship, by definition, it's not a federal system. Because federalism is about multiple poles of power at various levels, and each one exercising their powers on the basis of the Constitution. So when you have a one-man dictatorship, there's no democracy, there's no there's no federalism. And in that situation, Nigerians will have to come out and fight very strongly to preserve the system they want. But my advice to Nigerians is, you don't wait till the dictator succeeds in realizing their ambition of a full dictatorship. The current struggles must be pursued with vigor and with determination. And it is the pursuit of that sense of struggle against authoritarianism and dictatorship that will create the basis for future development of Nigeria's democratic system.
One of the leading presidential candidates, Mr. Peter Obi, I mean, there has been attempts to undermine political parties, destabilize them and all of that. But Mr. Peter Obi, for the first time, came out yesterday strongly, openly, that all his businesses, whatever he does to give him legitimate earnings, are under attack, severe attack by the government. But beyond that, that he might not even be alive, because people are saying he may not be on the ballot, but that no, he may not even be alive before or by the period of election next year, that his life is under threat. Respond to this, Prof, please.
Well, this is the first time hearing of that. I haven't followed the news closely over the last couple of days, and that for me will be very frightening. I think it's extremely worrying that Peter Obi is being subjected to such high level of harassment, and that even his life might be in danger. And I think it's the point I'm making. If this government succeeds in imposing its dictatorship over the country, then it's the future of the country that's at stake. And that therefore, the danger is not just for the opposition, it's for the entire country. And I think Nigerians must be aware that if they allow a full-blown dictator to emerge in this country, we are all finished as a people and as individuals. The opposition must survive. The opposition must be allowed to compete effectively against incumbents in power. And if that does not happen, it is the entire political system that's under threat.
Prof, what is the single biggest threat? Or before I even ask you that, what are the opposition doing enough in your opinion? Are they doing enough to present a robust challenge, healthy, legal challenge to the ruling party or ruling government?
Is the opposition doing enough is always a difficult question to pose, because we know from all over the world that opposition parties tend to have a problem, because you always find a situation in which a number of opposition parties all want to be the next president. And therefore, instead of cooperating among themselves, they compete against each other, divide the opposition, and allow the incumbents to continue in power. We definitely have some of that challenges in Nigeria. There was a lot of attempts this time around to ensure the opposition rally around a single candidate. That has failed. But I think in spite of that failure, the lack of popularity of the administration is so high that it's still very possible for an opposition party candidate to win the presidential election.
Okay, Prof, as we remaining 3 months, if you don't mind, one of them, Lateef Fagbemi, the Attorney General, got himself involved as a co-plaintiff in this case I referenced before, Justice Peter Lifuto, director of the party. And so many have said that was unbecoming of anybody occupying that office. You know, that's the only office inserted in the Constitution. And so many have said, separate that office, Ministry of Justice and Attorney General. What's your take on his involvement and all of that? What's your take, sir?
I feel that the Attorney General of the Federation is not representing the ruling party. He is head of the judiciary, of the Ministry of Justice, and his commitment should be to the rule of law and to ensuring that the Constitution is respected. A situation where the Attorney General of the Federation starts taking partisan position is a real threat to the respect the country has for that office. And I think it's unfortunate that the Attorney General is behaving in that manner.
Prof, can INEC, under Professor Josh Amoputa, that's come under heavy criticism, some would say justifiably so, can INEC be trusted to deliver free, fair, credible elections in 2027?
Well, I'm very worried about the standing of the INEC chairman. I followed with keen interest the revelation that at some point he was an open supporter of the Tinubu presidential campaign. When that was revealed, he came out to deny it. It's not wrong for him to support Tinubu at that time because he was a private citizen. But when the revelation came, it was wrong of him to deny what he had done. There are strong arguments about his partisanship on this matter. The speed with which he supported the judicial moves to disqualify opposition parties revealed that he was not non-partisan, and that in fact this was a partisan clearly supporting the present administration. All this suggests that his role in the forthcoming election may be extremely problematic, and Nigerians need to watch him very carefully.
Has this government of President Tinubu, have they crossed any red lines in your own views, Prof? Have they crossed any red lines democratically, legally, constitutionally, otherwise? Have they crossed any red lines that give you serious concern for the future of the Republic or democracy?
Well, a lot of what we have been talking about are actually red lines in terms of how to run a democracy, respecting the Constitution, respecting the rule of law, and respecting the counter powers of the National Assembly and of the judiciary. And on all this, as I've shown throughout this discussion, red lines have been crossed. So we are really in a very dicey situation in our democratic experiment at this point in time.
Final question, sir. What do you see in your crystal ball as you reflect on the forthcoming elections, 2027? Is there a scenario where you have reflected that the quest to remove President Tinubu from office democratically has become more difficult?
I think definitely President Tinubu is determined to get a second term through any means possible. And that's worrying. He should try to get a second term through democratic means. And I'm worried he's not just focusing on that. All these issues of stopping opposition parties from contesting using the judiciary to harass opponents and critics, neglecting the delivery of public services, all indicate a clear threat to democracy, to the rule of law, and I think above all, to the formal promise he made in his manifesto, Renewed Hope Agenda, to improve the lives and livelihoods of Nigerians and leave Nigerian society better than he found it. There is clear failure in terms of that fundamental promise. And given that situation, is for Nigerians to learn the lesson and learn how to defend themselves against a reckless presidency.
Prof, it would be remiss of me if I don't ask you to comment on state police. The constitution has been amended, some say hurriedly, but that we need it or not. What's your general view on the need or otherwise for state or community policing?
I'm a student of federalism, and in federal societies, the federating states establish police forces. I feel, however, that in the Nigerian context that we have today, state governors are as reckless, even if not even more reckless, than the president. And that in that context, it is dangerous to allow state police to operate. I'm also worried that there wasn't a serious discussion about the state police issue. The presidency has just decided to design what it wanted. And when you speak to even some of the governors, they are concerned about what that state police would be allowed to do, that there are so many constraints on its operation, including the ability to bear arms, and that therefore it may just be a symbolic thing, give them so that they stop making noise, but make sure it doesn't work. I think that will be a very sad situation.
So you don't see its practicability or workability being effective in tackling insecurity?
I don't think it will be effective in tackling insecurity.